Hi guys, very quick before we start. If you didn't do it yet, please remember to hit that subscribe button so you will get a notification for all the new videos to come and it keeps me going. Thank you very much. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thomas Love here from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and today we're gonna discuss the road to Leica. It has been a very long journey to get here, and it started something like 25 years ago with my very first SLR camera. It was a film camera from the brand Exacta. And then over the years, of course, I had my fair share of compact cameras and point and shoot and digital SLRs, but in the transition from film cameras to digital cameras, I got a bit lost because now you are all accustomed to having the metering, the autofocus, you can choose the ISO setting, while back then when I first started, everything was to be done manually. And so when the first DSLR came and it had autofocus, automatic metering and ISO setting, it was an abrupt arrival, and still the definition was not so good, so it was not really fair to compare it. I remember my auntie was still using her Minolta SLR when my uncle brought the very first Sony automatic camera, and it just didn't feel good to me. It felt weird, so for a bit I was lost and I stopped using my film camera and I just grabbed point and shoot cameras to go around, and I traveled a lot, guys. I really traveled a lot. So I don't know how many cameras over the last 25 years. I can mention a few ones covering like the last 10 years, so it will not be a 25 minutes video. One that I want to mention was sorry, I'm reading because it's hard to remember the exact names and the exact countries I visited with each camera. So the very first I want to mention was the Pentax Optio WG2. It was a submarine camera which I brought with me when I visited most of the Caribbean countries. It was with me in the Cayman Islands, on the Caribbean side, in Panama, in Mexico, in Belize, and in many other countries. And while I appreciated it and I brought it with me because it was a submarine camera, I didn't know that the way that camera manages the lights was not optimal to me for one simple reason. I was used to have the light coming through the air, while when it comes through the water it gets a totally different end result. So submarine photography as well as astrophotography is just a specific branch of photography, so you really need a lot of time to exercise and to learn it. It is not enough to be a good photographer on Earth to transpond it and become a good photographer underwater. Nonetheless, it was quite a good compact camera. I have no complaints about it. Then I had a couple of Sony compact cameras. The first was the DSC W130, which I mainly use in Peru, and it died there because one day I remember I was sandboarding down on the dune, so the sand entered the camera and the curtain could not properly get opened and closed, and I just stopped using it. And then I replaced it with another Sony camera, which is still a compact or point and shoot. Worth mentioning was my RX100 M4, which I loved because it was 28-70 or something like that. I don't remember the excursion of the lens. It was an f2.8, and on paper it was very good because it had an EVF I could use when it was too bright, because it had all the manual settings which I loved, like the ring you could use for focusing or for aperture or for zooming. And on paper it was a very good camera, but by using it I felt it a bit limiting because I was accustomed to an SLR, and so that was simply not it. And so in the end, the very small sensor that it had, it was too limiting for me, and I stopped using it. And I brought it with me mainly to two places which I visited extensively, which were New Zealand and Iceland. Here you can see some example shots I've taken with that camera. Another compact camera I had a lot of fun with was the Nikon P7000. The P7000 was with me in Tunisia and the Bahamas, in Miami, in Switzerland, and in many other places. It was so compact and so good. You were just pointing and shooting, literally. No headaches, and of course also not really award-winning pictures, but I loved using it. Now, every time I was using a point and shoot or a compact camera is because I didn't want to risk my gear, my expensive DSLRs and my heavy and big lenses were not just fitting into the backpack. Like when I visited New Zealand, I was backpacking for 3 months, and can you imagine having the tent, the mattress to sleep, and also a DSLR, couple of lenses, all the related chargers, tripods and stuff. I just picked the RX100 by Sony and put it into the pocket, and I was ready to use it anytime I needed it. Stepping up a bit, when Canon came out with those aggressive deals on pricing for the APS-Cs DSLRs, I thought I needed one of the smallest ones, which was the 600D. 600D, which I used with the kit lens for a while, and then I bought a couple of Sigma lenses, an 18-200, it was an f3.5 to 6.3, so it was really not bright, not fast enough, but it had a good range for focusing, so it was both a wide lens and the tele for shooting at distance for wildlife and animals. Here you can see a few examples of the shot that I've taken with my small Canon. So I had a lot of fun with that camera, despite once again I was using it mostly as a point and shoot because I had that 18-200 first, and then when I wanted to do things a bit more seriously for travel photography, I had with me also a 17-50 f2.8, always by Sigma, which I used also to try and exercise with astrophotography. I didn't love it particularly, but it was an honest camera, and it was with me all around the world. It was with me in Italy, in Hawaii, Latvia, French Polynesia, and Chile on Easter Island, Panama, Morocco, Turkey, Iceland, Poland, and also in Asia, Cambodia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Burma, Singapore, and Thailand. Yes, I traveled quite a lot. I was also on assignment for Google in some countries, so I had a lot of fun with that camera. Despite, as I told you, I didn't fall in love with it. So when I decided to step up, it was Nikon. Nikon was my very first love from years and years ago. I had this imprinting with Nikon being one of the most valuable cameras and one of the best brands, with no reason at all. I mean, it's still a good brand, of course, but so are the other brands. But my love was with Nikon, and so my preferred camera was that D750, which I brought with me all around the world again. It was with me in Italy and France, in Japan, in Mexico, in Oman, of course here in Vancouver, in Seattle for a short trip. But the best trip that I've taken with that camera was also the most important and challenging trip that I ever taken in my life. That was Tibet and Nepal. It was with me also in Transylvania and in Uzbekistan. Here are a few examples of the pictures that I've taken with it, and when I stepped up and went back to using a full-frame camera, I really put myself into it. I did many photography styles. I had a different photography styles also because years passed, I was more mature, I was more experienced, I had my fair share of wedding photography, of food photography for restaurants, for a book that I published, and I started having a lot of fun with street photography. So the lenses here, the kit lens the Nikon came with was a 24-120. It was not bright at all, and I faced its limits once I was in the forest in Nepal. and I wanted to shoot a rhino so badly, and you cannot ask a rhino to stay still because you're not ready, because the lens is not fast enough, and you have to pump up the ISO but not too much, otherwise you're having grains. And so, a long story short, the pics that I've taken of that rhino did not satisfy me. But anyway, I switched back to my 50mm f1.4, and that was a machine gun ready for street photography, and I shot street photography ever since. As you can see, we were not born with Leica. It was a very long journey. I felt I had to deserve it. I know many other photographers just started with Leica and they never stopped. There are photographers who bought a Leica from the M series as their very first camera and started using it and loving it, and they are still shooting with an M series camera nowadays in 2022. For me, I thought I had to earn it. I had to respect it because a Leica camera changes the way you're shooting. Once again, of course, you will have to adapt to the different cameras you're using. I had to adapt when I was using a submarine camera. I had to adapt for a point and shoot. I have to adapt for the first DSLR and then for a full frame camera, and choose lenses accordingly. And you start looking into framing, and you start checking the perimeter of your shots because you don't want to have any element half the way in or out. But Leica pushes you even further. You are striving for perfection now. You bring that camera in your hand and you're striving for perfection. And to be honest, I'm not there yet. Of course, my shots are not perfect. There's still a long way to go. And I'm willing to improving using my Leica every day, more and more and more, because in the very end, what makes you a good photographer is how much and how often you can practice and how deeply you know your camera. So you take all the settings and you manage them, and the camera does exactly what you have in mind. I'm having a lot of fun with my Leica. I'm still shooting street photography, I'm still teaching street photography. I also started doing some portrait photography with it, despite this wide lens, which is the 28mm, is not the 85mm one would expect to use to shoot portrait photography, but it's a very versatile camera. It's good as a landscape camera, it's good as a street photography camera, it's good as a point and shoot to always have it with you, and it's good for portrait photography as well. I also know some photographers that use it for weddings. It is such a good camera combined with a superior lens. It doesn't surprise me to see photographers using it for weddings as well. I don't know how many pictures I share with you of this journey, and these were only the most representative shot of my last 10 years with only a few of the cameras that I had. What does shooting with a Leica mean? To me, it means that I'm embodying their values, and I want to be as perfect as my camera is. I keep watching videos from other photographers, I keep studying photography, I keep exercising. You don't know when inspiration hits you, but if you have it with you and it's so easy and you know it that well because you have the manual controls at hand, then you will snap the shots that you really wanted to. I wanted to share with you my journey and this road to Leica with many examples that you saw in this video. If you liked it, please feel free to share it. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and I guess I will see you later. Bye.